Happy Halloween and welcome into another edition of Mic'd Up, presented by Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. That's right. Halloween is almost here as we're now getting towards another weekend of football. So we're going to preview our slate of games here. Pitt, Steelers, WVU, Penn State, all of those here throughout the weekend. Some big games, some mean something, some maybe not so much, but nonetheless, we got the coverage here at Pittsburgh Sports Now, Steelers Now, WV Sports Now, and even Nittany Sports Now. I'm your host, as always, Mike Asti, and I am joined by Mike Vukovcan. And Mike, it's a jam-packed college football weekend.
I have an important question for
Halloween. You. Steelers play on Halloween. What's your question?
Before we get into the small stuff, I hear this on the radio all the time, so I got to ask you.
Okay.
What's the go-to candy for you?
Wow, the go-to candy.
If you're you have a basket full of everything and you get to pick one or two things, where are you going?
I think I would definitely pick Twix. I think I would include Twix. I don't know, maybe a standard Snickers in there. I will tell you one candy I will not pick, and I agree with Mike Leach on this. The last candy that I would select out of all the options is candy corn. I am not a candy corn guy. Candy corn sucks. Candy corn is overrated if you do like it. Hate some candy corn, but yeah, I think Snickers, Twix, maybe.
I'm a Reese cup guy.
Reese's would be
peanut
good.
Butter, yeah.
We actually have a bag of Reese's here that we're leaving for the kids, but a squirrel got in them. So we already lost some before Halloween. Yeah. Peanut butter Reese's is awesome as well. Actually, this is kind of a quick, funny story that not long ago, I don't know if I said something or what happened, but Butterfinger randomly slid in my DMs, true story, and said that, hey, do you want some free Butterfinger sent to you? Said, sure. Yes, I do. And they did send them. I got a picture and everything. It's on my Twitter. They sent them. It was several boxes of Butterfinger. They just wanted me to take a picture with them and then tweet about them a little bit. And they kept sending me candy. So that was fantastic. But the funny story is, once we got the first box, and then my wife was like, "What's this?" And I explained to her what happened and how they sent them to me. She said, "You know what? That's really cool, but I wish it was Reese's." And I said, I don't know if beggars can be choosers here, but yes, Reese's is awesome as well. But some standard candy, but candy corn sucks. So anything but candy corn, throw that away if you get candy corn. That's how you eat candy corn. So to start things off, though, Pitt, big game again, just because Pitt wants to continue their journey to a special season, to an ACC championship. Certainly Pitt in the driver's seat right now to the Coastal at minimum. And then once they get there, you never know. They have a Miami team, and Miami and the ACC network even it almost seems like trying to hype this game up a little bit, throwing up videos of Miami in the past and saying, you don't want this smoke. Well, I don't know if Pitt's scared of this smoke because Miami's been very vulnerable this season. Ed Reed, Michael Irvin, they're not running through the smoke. This is a different cast of characters with Miami. Pitt obviously riding high after the big win over Clemson. Kenny Pickett now a legit Heisman candidate. Pitt's favored. Pitt should win. But as we know, there are going to be hiccups potentially prior to getting that ACC title game. Miami could be one of them. They have a lot of talent. We've talked about before. When you have five-star kids there, you could have that aha moment at any point. This is still a talented Miami team. What are the keys for Pitt to beat Miami? And does Miami offer anything that could provide a stumbling block and a hiccup to Pitt?
Well, the best thing Pitt has going for them right now is the fact that even without their current injuries, Miami's struggles this season have been on defense. They're allowing, I believe, 30-some points a game. Pitt's averaging, I don't know what the latest average is, but they're somewhere in I think they're somewhere in the 40s. This week, it was announced that Miami's leading tackler, safety Bubba Bolden, he's out for the season. Last week, they started a guy that made his first career start at cornerback. The other guy played a career high 29 snaps. So what I'm saying is Miami's secondary looks to be vulnerable. Pitt's strength is their passing game. That looks like a good go-to for Pitt. The thing that Miami offers, though, is that despite their struggles, they've been able to put up points this year. They're losing, but they're still putting up a lot of points, and it's continued despite they have a redshirt freshman quarterback in there, Tyler Van Dyke.
Kind of weird, yeah.
The guy that Pitt actually recruited. Last week in their big win, he threw for 325 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's a 4-star kid. He's playing well. But there are going to be some different factors. Pitt defense is different than what he's going to have faced in his first 2 career starts. They're a lot better than he's faced. And I just wonder how much weather is going to play into tomorrow as far as these passing attacks. The kids from Florida coming up here. It's not going to be real comfortable to play in. I believe the temperature is going to be somewhere in the low 50s.
Yeah.
Low 50s, rain. I would take the over in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points. I actually think Pitt's defense is going to give up some points, more so than they did last week against Clemson. But I think Pitt's going to win. I don't know about the current spread's 9.5.
I was going to say, I believe it's 9.5. Is that right?
Yeah, those guys in Vegas are good. I don't know. I think it's right around there. I think Pitt wins by 10, somewhere in there. I don't think at all it's going to be a easy game, but I think in the end, Pitt will have a little bit too much on offense, and I think Miami will continue to make mistakes that they've done all year as far as turnovers, giving up big plays, and as I mentioned, I think their secondary is going to get exposed a little bit.
Yeah, so maybe hand over that turnover chain to some Pitt players there. Yeah. Miami passes that around, and they're still bragging about it this year, even though it's been a 3-4 season so far. One point is, and as you mentioned, Miami does bring an offense, maybe to some surprise. 31 points over NC State, 42 even in the loss to North Carolina, 28 in the loss to Virginia. Obviously 69 the week before to Central Connecticut State. They can score. They've been scoring. It's been several months of them scoring. They just have made mistakes on defense. They have been banged up, but they're a 3-4 team. You are what you are in a way, and the weather won't be in their favor. I do think Pitt gets out of it with a win, but yeah, Vegas, it's interesting spread because normally when you have a team that has a chance at winning a conference and maybe even an outside chance at the playoff, and versus a 3-4 team making mistakes with injuries on the road, normally that spread might be more than 9.5. But maybe this tells you Vegas is smart. They usually hit it. If I had to go, I would go maybe 10. That would be over the 9.5. But
it's dropped down a little.
Me.
It's dropped down a little. It started the week. It started the week at 11.5, and now it's now it's 9.5. So
it almost feels like people, and this could be why the spreads are moving. You might see this in future Pitt games. You might see this against Virginia, against North Carolina State, or North Carolina as well. People might be looking for that hiccup for Pitt. So bettors are trying to say, oh, there's going to be some hiccup. What will it be? There's talent there, so maybe that's it. I think Pitt wins as well, but Pitt needs to worry about nothing about the ACC, the Coastal, or even the playoff. They can't control what other people do around the country. It's about hashtag, and I've seen some replies to our tweets on shows and different articles, hashtag beat Miami. That's what it has to be. That really has to be what it is, and we'll see.
The other thing that could be playing into this too, and another reason this game could be, we'll see how it goes, is Pitt's the availability of Jordan Addison and Abanaconda is still up in the air. It looks as though right now neither will play, which will play a factor in.
What's a bigger loss? Who's a bigger loss? Obviously, Addison, Pickett's number one receiver. They've had a great passing offense, but recently the running games emerged, and that obviously helps Pickett out as well.
I would say just Addison, just because of his. I think Rodney Hammond is going to show that he's a really good player for Pitt, and he'll be able to be okay. Addison is a big play guy he's that home run threat that Pickett has a comfort factor with.
That's how you bury teams.
Yeah, and so, but Pitt does have other players that can step up, but none of them are Jordan Addison. So, that could also be playing into Vegas, maybe seeing what his, what their availability is. And maybe, they get it cleared before the game or whatever.
Right.
You might see that spread go up a little bit.
Yeah, possibly here. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti, mic'd up here on PSL and PSN. We're also going to move to our Steelers now coverage. Big game for the Steelers coming off a bye, a rivalry game, looking to get revenge from losing in the playoffs last week. So taking a a switch from college to the pros here for a minute before we finish out with our remaining college games. Steelers, Browns, a lot of chatter. Eric Ebron talking about how can you not be motivated in this game. They did send us home last year. All true. Both of these two teams have kind of been similar this year where they've looked good at times. Other times they haven't. It's been a roller coaster ride for both teams. They're still both in it. They both think they can be playoff teams this year. Obviously, Ben's played a little better recently, which has helped the Steelers win those games, but they haven't been perfect. They didn't really look that great even against Seattle, who maybe should have won that game, and they're very banged up and not that good this year. Baker Mayfield is in doubt. The Browns are just banged up all over the place. Case Keenum actually played well in their last game. What are your thoughts, Steelers, Browns? Obviously a big game. Steelers really got to get this victory. They got to win these divisional games more than anything else if they're going to slide into the postseason, especially with now the Bengals looking like they could be a playoff team this year as well.
Yeah, I think I might have went different if Steelers didn't have the bye week. I think that's going to be big for the Steelers. I think they got healthy. Okay. I think the only guy on their list of that matters is Melvin Ingram. I guess he did something with his hamstring. Hopefully he's able to play.
And if he wants to play, that's a whole nother drama and a conversation for the day. Apparently he wants more playing time. I don't know what he thought he was going to get with the Steelers. He made it clear that he knew they weren't going to give him too much playing time. He literally had a quote, "I'll just do whatever they ask me," back in July. I found it in our articles, and obviously that's gone. He wants more PT. I get that as an athlete, but yeah.
Yeah. I like the Steelers in this game. Surprisingly, I think it's going to be I think the defense is going to play well. I think they're going to stack the box against Chubb, and I think it's going to be effective. Despite him saying he's going to play, Jarvis Landry he has a bum knee, and he's going to try to play. We'll see how effective he is.
Right.
OBJ isn't the same receiver. He's not going to ever be the same receiver that he was. And losing Kareem Hunt's a big deal. He's a guy that has killed the Steelers out of the backfield with his catching. He's a good complement to Chubb. And I just think this week off is going to help the Steelers. I think everyone's healthy on offense now. And I think the Steelers to pull out a close win, probably less than a touchdown, 28-24. I think the Steelers keep this thing going. I think the Browns quarterback situation, despite people singing the praises of Case Keenum, he's still Case Keenum. There's a reason why. A reason why he's been on so many teams throughout his career. Is he a nice backup?
He is. Sure. Case Keenum, yeah.
Yeah, sure. He's a nice backup. But anyone that tells you they would rather have Case Keenum in there than Baker Mayfield, is lying to themselves.
Well, I said that as a joke.
If Baker Mayfield was healthy, I would be picking the Browns in this game. He's not going to be healthy the rest of the year, even if he plays. And Case Keenum is still Case Keenum.
Yeah, I do believe Baker Mayfield to be overrated from what maybe the Browns fans think he is, from what maybe the country thinks he is, and what he gets talked about in terms of media and by analysts. However, I was just joking. Others, I'm sure, were just joking as well, just kind of to needle the Browns fans. Case Keenum would not be a better option than Baker Mayfield. However, Case Keenum is taking care of the football. That's the only benefit for him. But he's a backup. He's a career backup. He's not going to win that game for you. Chubb being there is big, but as you said, Hunt would, if I had to pick between one or the other, I'd rather have Hunt because he can be more of a pass catcher for you. So they're going to be a ground and pound team trying not to make mistakes. The Steelers have an easy scheme against them. I do think the Steelers win this game as long as the Steelers don't make mistakes, as long as Ben doesn't try to do too much. For me, and this is like the playoff game, if the Steelers lose this game, I feel like it's probably because Ben reverts back to what he was a few weeks ago. The Steelers make too many mistakes. They try to press. They're maybe too into the game to get revenge. And there's a couple of turnovers or fumbles or something in favor of the Browns, and they then score. If that doesn't happen and the Steelers play regular football like they've been for a couple of weeks, no matter how great it looks, they're at least taking care of the football now, then I do think the Steelers win. I do think maybe the Steelers defense causes some turnovers and they get the W. So I do think the Steelers win. The schedule gets a little easier even after that with the Bears and Lions and those teams coming up. The Steelers could clip off a solid record here going into the latter half of the season, maybe a 6-3, but it will get a lot tougher at the end of the year. And some of these teams Steelers didn't think were going to be good teams are now looking good. So we will have a pretty treacherous trek to end the season for the Steelers. But at this point, it's a big game. This is almost a must-win game for either team here, especially with the way the division is rolling right now with Baltimore and Cincinnati. So
I think this is a bigger game for the Browns, just because there's a lot of bad vibes going. There's a lot of, I don't want to say negative, a lot of people concerned up there because of what was expected from the Browns this year. I don't think anyone came in to this year. There might be some people that expected the Steelers to make the playoffs. There's nobody that expected them to go far.
No, and the Browns were a sexy Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If they lose this game
3-3.
now, then they have a losing record. They have a banged up team. They have some personalities on that team that if things start to go bad, we could be seeing a lot of activity on Twitter with a lot of the people up there. So this is a big win for them. Stefanski,
they're at home,
is going to be facing his first real test. If they lose, they have a losing record. So, but I think it's going to be a good game, and that's why CBS has their A+ team going there. So I think be curious to weather too. I think weather is going to play a huge factor in games. All this weekend with the amount of rain we're supposed to be getting today, tomorrow, and we'll see if it carries over to Sunday. We'll see.
Yeah, it's fall, y'all. It's a typical fall football weekend in college and pros, maybe even high school as well. Rain is absolutely going to potentially be a factor. Glad we don't have any snow right now like in past years, so I'm happy about that little warmer fall. But yeah, rain and weather is going to play a factor here. I'm surprised actually OBJ has kind of been professional and hasn't said anything on Twitter or to the media. He's actually not caused problems, but you never know. He didn't cause problems last year when they were winning. It's hard to cause problems as a winner. Yeah, this gets to 3-4 and Baker's still in doubt. And maybe now the pressure gets to you. They're that sexy pick this year, but let's put it to you this way and leave it this way with Steelers Browns until the game. The Browns is the Browns, man. So they've been browning it up this year to this point, and we'll see if Cleveland ends up seizing the day or ends up cleveling it up and once again disappointing now with expectations and certainly more than the Steelers entering the year. To be fair, Penn State, Ohio State. Penn State got to win this game, obviously. Ohio State is that team we talked about it the other day in terms of Franklin's future and what he's done in his career. He does have that one big win years ago, or Penn State does, but that getting big wins against Ohio State is different than big wins in general. He wants to beat Ohio State. It sucks to lose to Illinois going into the game. That's a big letdown. It's hard for my wife, even to me, get her into the game. I want to watch it. But yeah, I mean, Penn State season's now a little bit less exciting. It's still a big game, though, because if you look at the playoff picture, if Ohio State finishes out the year, remain undefeated, and they clip off all these wins, they will have that one loss, but it's to a top 15 team that also is to a conference champion in Oregon. Michigan, if they're undefeated, they both could go in that game with the winner maybe getting in the playoff. Maybe there's a chance, like the SEC with Bama and Georgia, maybe if Michigan loses a close game, they could have one loss only to a top 5 Ohio State team, and they both could somehow get in. Obviously, big games, Michigan State and Michigan playing as well. That's big for the Big Ten. If whichever one comes out of there, I think Michigan would be the better option to try to make that a big game at the end of the year. But whoever comes out will remain undefeated. Ohio State got to obviously win. They lose at all again, they're done for the playoff. Penn State's going to be hungry. There's talent there, but they got some murky water right now with Franklin's future. The quarterback position is still in doubt. They're also injury riddled. Do they have a chance at now what would be an upset, and a pretty big upset thanks to the Vegas odds, to beat Ohio State to keep their season moving and kind of save their season in a way? Or does it just putter out of control and Ohio State continues on to potentially try to sneak back into the playoff?
I just don't see a way Penn State stays close in this game, to be honest with you. I think I could have made a case possibly if the game was at State College. The game being at the only
18.5 is crazy for these teams.
Yeah. The only factor that the only conceivable way that I could see Penn State staying close in this game and having a chance to win is the strength of their team, is their defense.
Yeah.
And Ohio State has a true freshman quarterback, CJ Stroud. He's played well, but this is a big game. Penn Penn State strengthens their that he can
those
maybe
rookies
play one game. He can maybe play like a freshman.
Yeah.
Problem for Penn State though is they're going to be facing the best trio of receivers that they've faced all season, and they're probably the top 3 receivers in the country as far as a group with Ohio State. They just have so much firepower. And
Penn State can't hang. They can't score enough. If you can barely score against Illinois, it doesn't matter even
if
who's
they kept it
close.
If they kept it close with their defense, but the way their offense is playing right now, they're just not playing. They're not putting enough points on the board. And if you look at the history, James Franklin's 1-6 at Penn State against Ohio State, and then against top 10 teams, he's 2-9. The numbers just don't add up as far as.
Yeah.
And the other thing is being in Ohio State, that's just such a huge.
That's a tough place to play.
Everyone talks about, the whiteouts and what a factor it is. And it's an undeniable factor when people go to Penn State. It's the same thing for a night game. You go to Ohio State. That's going to be, it's going to be a scene. The people in Ohio State, the program, the people around the team, you're getting to November now. This is not September where games are, you sleepwalk through. They, as you mentioned, they see the playoffs at the end of the road here, and they know that if they slip up, it's over with. So I just don't see Ryan Day allowing that to happen. And actually, I just don't see this game being. I don't see this game being close. I think Ohio State covers the spread of last time I looked, it was 17.5. So I think they cover. They cover the 17.5 point spread.
I just looked, it's 18.5 right now.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be something if they cover that. I don't know if they cover that. Maybe this is a solid bet that they wouldn't cover that, but I do think Penn State doesn't have enough to win the game. I do think Ohio State wins. And as you said, Ohio State knows, whether it be Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer now, or whoever, death taxes in Ohio State as a contender looking at the playoff. They know how to do this. The program knows how to do this. And they have, let's be fair, they have the least opportunity to get in. If they lose, they're done for the playoff, even if they somehow win the Big Ten. That'd be 2 losses. There's so many teams vying for this. There's about 8 or 9 teams with 1 or less, and they all can have a chance. You can't have 2 losses no matter who you are. So they cannot lose. They are very, very good, though. They've been getting better. Penn State's been looking worse. I don't know where Franklin's head is because he's talking about his personal life and other jobs and other teams. Mike, you can watch the two clips I got up there on PSL. He didn't mention Ohio State one time. So I don't know what he's preparing for, but yeah, he needs to get ready for a rough road in Columbus in the Horseshoe. And I do think Ohio State wins it.
The other thing, Mike, too, is that, and I think we saw this last week. We don't know the exact injury, and we don't know how healthy Sean Clifford is.
Right.
He played against Illinois, but there's a difference between playing and being healthy and being able to perform.
He looked different.
If he's not healthy, completely healthy against Ohio State, they need him.
As much as
they need. Ohio State's going to score 28 points in this game,
at least
28 points. Penn State has to be able to match that somehow. And it could come down to defense. It could down to maybe a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown to boost up to help out the offense. But they have the real health of Sean Clifford is going to be key because they still, as we've chronicled all year, they haven't been able to get a consistent running game. They've relied on their passing game. Yeah. And when he's healthy, he was good. He got hurt against Iowa, and how good how healthy he is remains to be seen.
Yeah. And as much as people rag on him a lot and nobody expected him to be as good as he was to this point, we're good there. It's a Halloween edition. Nobody attacked Mike, though. That wasn't an attack from Stream or Jason or anything like that.
No,
he's all fine. Yeah, well, nonetheless, Sean Clifford is a key here because, he might not be a Heisman candidate, but he's certainly better than any other option. He has been better than people thought this year. Taquan Robinson's not winning this game for you, so he certainly needs to be back and playing well and better than even last week, which I don't know if it's even possible. But Penn State's going to have potentially some really humble pie served to them prior to Thanksgiving. And the weird thing is, going into that Iowa game, people were talking about Penn State having a chance to the playoff. They get blown out in this game, depending on what goes on around the country. In 3 weeks, they could go from top 10 to not ranked at all. They could slide out. I mean, if it's a top 5 team, so if they lose it close, they probably will stay in there. But if they lose by 30 points, I could easily see them sliding out with what's going on around the country. And that is a weird situation for Penn State, especially with their head coach situation in flux.
If they lose, they're out.
They should be. Although it's a great team they're playing. But yeah, they're 20th. They're
I always say that too. It drives me nuts when top 10 teams, a number 10 plays a number 2.
Right.
The number 2 beats the number 10, and then
like
you penalize number 10 by dropping them down into the 20s. Like, what did you expect?
Right.
There's a reason why they're number 2.
Yeah, right, sure. And that's kind of the only defense I can give to Penn State here. Even with 3 losses, they're likely better than some teams that would be ranked 25th, but they would probably bounce out, and maybe they could get back in, but I don't know if it would matter. And this season could completely unravel, and they start getting blown out in some of these games. You're going to have people saying, are they even playing for James Franklin? Are they believing what he's saying? Will Franklin win out, and will that help maybe convince him he needs to move on? This could be a really bad year for Penn State before we close up the season here. Before we close it, just last thing here, West Virginia is playing. They're trying to turn it around. They did come off a victory over TCU. That was a big must-needed win for WVU. It's Ohio State. Speaking of ranked team, this is a ranked team they're playing. If Iowa State would lose, that would help Penn State maybe stay in the rankings. They're 22nd in the country. Obviously, it's kind of a big game. Yeah, the Mountaineers win this, they still might have a chance at a bowl game, as crazy as that sounds from where we were a couple weeks ago. If they don't win this, they don't. And Iowa State needs to win this to legitimize the conference, to allow big wins for Oklahoma and those teams to stay against ranked teams. And they're also looking for a special year in their regard for what their program is, coming off of a really great season last year that people forget during that pandemic. Do the Mountaineers have a chance against Iowa State?
Yeah, I do. I think they do. I think it's going to actually be a really, wouldn't shock me if that. I don't expect West Virginia to win, but I expect it to be, as has been the case with West Virginia a lot this year.
Yeah.
If they lose, I think it's going to be by a touchdown or less.
Okay.
I think they have a couple of things going in their factor.
It's a 7-point spread in favor of Iowa State from what I'm seeing. That's an interesting bet. That's an interesting bet.
I would take West Virginia with the points on that one. Iowa State's coming off the big win over number 8 Oklahoma State. A little letdown, and then they also this is a sandwich game. Next week they play Texas.
Yeah.
So there's that. Keeping the focus. West Virginia is going to be rocking tomorrow. I think their fan base knows what's at stake. Regardless of, it's one of the best things about West Virginia is it's always a tough, as I mentioned before with Ohio State, that's a tough place to play. The fans will support them, until its game gets out of hand. But if they keep it close, that'll be a tough place.
Yeah.
The thing they got to go against them, though, is that Iowa State's going to have the best player on the field in quarterback Brock Purdy. So
yeah, he will.
I think Iowa State's been a little conservative this year with offense. I think that, and they haven't scored a ton. I don't want to say they're overrated, but if you look at their wins this year, their 4 wins, they've come against Northern Iowa, Kansas, UNLV, and Kansas State before Oklahoma State. So it isn't as though they've actually played murderer's row there.
No.
So, in West Virginia, they played some good teams and they've kept it close. And so I expect this game to stay close, but it'll come down to the quarterback, as it always does.
Yeah.
It's a boring answer unless they can control the ground game with Letty Brown. But, they're going to have to make some plays through the passing game. But I suspect this game to come down to the fourth quarter, and I wouldn't be shocked if West Virginia wins, but I just don't know that they have the offense to do so. But hopefully they do.
Yeah, I don't know if Day can hang with Brock Purdy either. He is the best player on the field. And Iowa State's been beating up on the Mountaineers in recent years since they got into the Big 12. That's the one team that even when WVU's been a better team, they just cannot get over Iowa State. So there is some motivation for West Virginia to maybe try to get off the snide. They will be at home. They usually do play well again around this time of year, these home Halloween games that you're going to see a lot of costumes. The fans will get into it. Having this a home game and winning last week over TCU and having this against the ranked team at home during Halloween weekend, at the very least, and a bowl game, crawling in a bowl game doesn't give you that much excitement or trust in the climb based on last year, because last year was a better year. But this does reinvigorate the fan base a little bit. They can spoil some seasons. They are getting better. Letty Brown finally emerged a little bit recently, and Jarret Doege's taking better care of the football. So I think they'll hang in there. But again, that's going to be the same story for Neil Brown, and I'm sure the media is going to ask him if they lose a close game here. Eventually, you got to start winning some games. You can't just lose close games for 3 years, which has kind of been the case. But they've played it close to most of this season, and maybe some of these games could have been swung the other way, and all of a sudden they could be sitting there at,
this game is their. This game is going to be for their bowl, Mike.
Yeah, right.
Because if you look at their schedule, this would be their if they win, you get your 4th win. They'll close the season with Kansas, which will be a win. So that's 5.
Well,
that's
next week will be tough. Oklahoma State,
and then they play
tough,
3, and they got to win 1 out of the next 3 games, and those are tough games. They lose this game to Iowa State, they're not going bowling. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Texas. Right. So that's a challenging stretch right there. So that's why this is a if you're into that and you deem that important, a bowl game, they need to beat Iowa State.
Yeah, and there's pressure on Jarret Doege because if they don't win this game, I'm going to say like I've been all year. They don't win this game, Garrett Green should start. We got to see what's going on here if he's going to be the guy next year. That'll do it for this edition of the show. A big college football weekend, a big fall weekend around the country, but certainly around our network. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti, keep it here for the post-game shows and also around